Okay, beautiful people, we're going to review your photos today, and I have over 20 submissions here, and we are ready to review and give you some feedback. Okay, starting off strong with the first image. We have a photo of what is this flower? What was this flower called? We have a dandelion. Yes, taken with a Android phone, MI5. I'm not very familiar with this phone, but it looks like we've got some blurry background going on there, and a little bit of a desaturated filter on there. So I like the composition. It's just a flower, just a dandelion. But I think we could get a little bit more creative with this. Let's see what we got next. So next one, we have a coffee. And I actually really like this photo. I like how you have the coffee there with the beautiful logo. I think it's called Husband and Wife since 2017. It's a very beautiful coffee shop. And I like how the picture is just sitting there, and the whole composition with composing it with the lines and the coffee being in the background. You have something in the foreground and you have the main subject in the background and a nice bouquet at the end there. The lighting is perfect. It's not too sharp, not too bright, and just nice and soft, and you can see everything. And yeah, I really like this picture. It's really nice. Let's see what we have next. Okay, next we have a little bit of a darker photo. We have some leaves here with some water on them, and I can really see that there's been some editing put on this, some darker kind of editing, and a really strong contrast between the shadows of where it's almost not visible and the highlights being just soft enough to enhance the image. And what I would maybe do is I would maybe pick up the highlights a little bit more, which are these brighter parts of the image. And if we zoom in, you can actually see that the focus is not on the leaf completely. The leaf isn't completely focused, but rather than somewhere at the back there, which you could fix by just opening up your aperture a little bit more, rather than f1.8 having f2.8, and then you could see the whole leaf. And yeah, in general, it's a good photo. There's a bit of a green color shifting done in editing, so great photo. Next on the list, we have a beautiful cat. Looks like maybe it's been taken on the street. Doesn't have a collar. There's some stuff in the background there, some cables, which I don't really like. You could maybe remove that with some AI or mask it out, or even maybe try and take the picture of the cat from a different angle. But in general, it looks good. The cat is sharp. He's a little sleepy or just blinking. Maybe he's blinking. Maybe you got the shot while he was blinking and didn't get his eyes. But I think if you would have gotten his eyes in the shot and maybe zoomed up a little bit more, it would have been beautiful. Because we can see the light here is completely covering the cat, and he's well centered. So another great photo. Let's move on to the next one. So this one is in horizontal format, and I can see that it's very nostalgic, very moody. And I like how the whole image is just almost like duotone. There's only orange and black in there, and the light just pops out and just perfectly on the human crossing the center, in the center crossing the road, and I like how well this image is almost centered, and I would personally maybe crop it in a little bit more, just to get rid of that car on the right side. But I like, it's just so perfect. It's just the perfect walk, perfect step. A bit of smoke coming out of the mouth. I don't know if that's real smoke or just added in there, but the lighting in there and everything is just beautiful. A very, very good photo, and very moody, shall we say. Let's see what we got next. All right, we have some dogs here. We've got some cats, we've got some dogs, animals and stuff. People loving animals, and I love animals too. I have a dog myself. Looks like her name is Rosie. Looks like a photo on the phone, just a dog walking in the park, but all photography is art, and certainly it's a beautiful dog, very beautifully dressed, very, very beautifully dressed, and yeah, I like this photo. Maybe some editing would have been great there if you're really trying to enhance the photography of yourself. Maybe getting a little bit lower to be on the same level as the dog is, and taking the picture and then having more of him rather than almost like as if you're looking from the top, and really getting the feel of the dog. But let's move on to the next photo. So this one is actually by my friend Elena. Hello. And this is a photo in some beautiful islands called Koh Phangan. I like this image. It's very clean. There is some stuff in there, but you can get rid of that with editing. And I like how it's composed, how you can see the trees in there and stuff, and you've got some sort of a leading line towards the road, and it really brings you in this photo. I think you could make the picture even better if you would stand in the middle of the road, and then your leading lines would lead into the road, into the middle, into the center of the image. But yeah, great photo. Next picture. Okay, we have some studio photography, and there's one thing I'll tell you straight away about studio photography. You now have more tools than you would have if you were outside. If you're outdoors, you're limited by your light source. It's just moving in different places, and then you have the light that you have from the sun, or the light that you have from the ambient lighting created by the restaurant or whatever you are. But once you step into the studio, it's like you have more tools now, and now you can move these lights around, and you can create these interesting shapes. And you can see that the model is sitting there, and the light is coming from the back of her, giving her a bit of an edge on her head there. You can see that brighter spot separating her from the background, and from the front you have soft light, which allows us to see her, and then some smoke in there. I like the smoke, but I think the smoke is, I'm not sure if it's real or fake, but it looks very straight. It looks very, almost like a paintbrush has just been painted over. I would want maybe the smoke to like come out of the tube or something, out of the mask or something, or cover a little bit more of the image. If the smoke is in there, it's just a little bit too clean, the rest of it. Maybe if she was like kind of walking through the smoke or something like that, and you could just see her, it would really stand out there. And the quality is amazing. I like the quality on it, the smoothness. It's not too sharp. It's not too crisp. And yeah, but that's usually something you can achieve with studio photography, and a really good photo. Really good photo. I'll rate this one. Next, we have an image of a flower that looks like it's not quite opened up yet. If you zoom in, you can see that there's nice bokeh around it. You could probably add a little bit more editing to it, make the outside of the surroundings of the flower a little bit darker, and then the flower itself could stay bright and a little bit more saturated. And in that way, you could really bring in the focus on the flower rather than the whole image just being like one color, because everything is almost one color. It's green, and it's hard to focus. You're like almost like jumping around the image, looking at the bottom there and looking at the left. And if you could really like mask out the outside and make it darker and less contrasty, or more contrasty in the way, and have the separation between dark and white. I think contrast is the most important thing in photography and in life in general and everything. Contrast is very important. Let's move on. Oh, perfect, right here, exactly what I was talking about. So we have the same image, and we have a red flower in the middle, and it's very contrasted. It's bright, not super bright, but it's bright, and it's red, and it's saturated, whereas the rest of the image is not. So yeah, the outside of the image is desaturated, and exposure is lowered, so it really brings out the contrast. Even though it's just a simple photo, it's just a flower, but the editing here really tells a good strong character of the contrast. And I think if you always try to achieve this contrast in every kind of image, you can really get the photo to look good. Even if it's not the best shot ever, you can still make it look good with editing. And speaking of editing, I think that editing is very, very useful for everyone, because it's a way of showing art. It's like having an empty canvas and then painting it with your paintbrush. And a lot of people say that, oh, I don't like to edit my photos because it's over-edited, blah, blah, blah. But in a way and form, there's 2 people, 3 people, 10 people can take a picture of the same castle or same mountain, and then, they're gonna have the same thing on them. The cameras are just gonna give it more quality or more dynamic range, but at the end of the day, the editing is what makes it yours, what makes it your special touch, how you want to see it, where do you want the attention to be in your kind of artistic painting. So edit your photos. Next photo, we have a black and white image of some lady selling what it looks like spices and nuts, and I think that this photo is very good. I like how it's showing the whole image and showing the whole. I wonder where this is. somewhere in the Middle East maybe. But I like how it's showing the whole image. It's showing the whole story. You can see the lady sitting there and just, you know, being comfortable in her zone and selling these spices, and it tells you a very, very earthy kind of story. But at the same time, I would like to see more of the lady. I think the contrast is here. You can see how bright the parts of the image are, but at the same time, certain higher parts of the image are a bit more dark. But I think that I would like to see the lady a bit more. I think she really tells the story here. And if you would maybe take the left bottom corner of the image and you would make it slightly darker and then have her slightly brighter with some masking, then you would have the middle of the image bright and then the outsides, the bottom dark and then the top bright, I think. Yes, editing. Beautiful, beautiful photo. All right, next photo we have here is of a cake, if it looks like it. I'm personally not a fan of cakes and all things sweet considered, but some people are, and we can see that there is some composition here which could be slightly adjusted if you would just lower the camera a little bit more and have the cake as the main subject, and then the background just being there. Otherwise, the half of the image is almost covered with what looks like to be a whiteboard and a screen there and a juice and stuff. But in general, it's a good photo, and I think you could really work on it. I can see that there's ice cream in the background. I think it's ice cream or maybe some fruits. And if you maybe pick up the camera from the top, then you can see both of them and center both of them in a way, then I think that would tell a bit more story and a bit more, you know, have a bit more to the image rather than just having the focus on the little thingy on top of the cake. But good image. Next photo, wow, I like this one. I like the energy in this photo, the child being so happy and the clouds just being there, like very vibrant and not too saturated at the same time. I like how she really stands out and the energy that she gives off, the happiness. I really love it. On the aspect of photography, looks like it's been taken on a phone, because you can see how there's almost this HDR effect where you can see the brightest bits of the image very well and the darkest bits of the image also very well. But I cannot pick up if there's any editing done to it. Maybe there is some sort of saturation and maybe a little bit of contrast edited. But the energy, sometimes it's the story that tells a great picture, and it doesn't even need to be a professional photographer with a professional camera and professional lighting and everything else. It's just the energy or the emotion or the story that tells you, and I think that's the most beautiful part about photography. And when you can combine both of them and all of these aspects, the storytelling, the emotions and great gear and great lighting and great composition, I think that's how you can really achieve a good photo. And in my opinion, a good photo of a human being energetic and happy is much better than a good photo of maybe a plant or a cake or a coffee. But let's move on. Okay, here we have a picture with a couple of collages together to it, which is in a way artistic. And we have the pick of the day, and we have a heart on the left side, which is looks like to be a little flower. The photo looks a little bit unsharp, but maybe it's just due to the uploading. But in general, I think if we would maybe have these two black and white photos removed and just have this one in there, and you could again create this contrast between the background being a little bit darker and the flower in your hand being brighter and more saturated. You can see that the flower is not very bright and not very saturated. If you could just edit it a little bit and make it more brighter and pop, I think it would be a really beautiful photo. And then the other two, the black and white ones, could be nice to be as separate photos. But art is appreciated and everybody has their own way of showing art. So let's move on. Okay, we have a landscape in a vertical format, and we have a couple, or looks like a couple, that are sitting and observing the sea. And I think this is a very beautiful photo, but in my opinion, I think the editing is great. The colors, the contrast and everything else in there, you can see that it's been a sunny day and it's been very bright, and then in this corner it should have been very dark, so that has been edited to create a smooth look to it. But I think that personally, I think that this couple is a little bit too much into the corner. Yeah, so I think the couple laying there could maybe be a little bit more into the corner of the rule of thirds. I'm going to pull up a rule of thirds on the screen here, and I think if they would be just slightly bit more into the rule of thirds, if I could maybe zoom in like that, I think that would be like, you know, they would be the subject of the image with the background and everything. But just in general, it's almost like they just drift off a little bit to the side. But I really like the colors in here. The blues of the water, they look like they've been maybe slightly adjusted, and the sharpness and the clarity of everything is beautiful. Very good photo. You can see it's been done with a professional camera, and you can see that they are in focus, but at the same time the background is also in focus, so whoever was taking this photo really knew how to operate their camera. Let's move on. Okay, we have a bit more darker photo here. This is my shot, blah, blah, blah. And we have a picture of a kid on the street. Not sure what he's doing there. But this whole picture has a very moody color over it. And it's like very slightly faded. And I like that it brings in the darkness of maybe the loneliness of being there. And I'm not too sure about the history of this individual child, but I think that the energy here is delivered through the way that it almost brings in a little bit of a sadness, a little bit of loneliness. And I think that maybe you could edit it a little bit more and make the child just stand out a bit more. And I think if you could make the shadows a little bit more blue, then it would make it even more cold and more like lonely and yeah, I think a good photo. Even in vertical it would work, I think. But I think these moody photos, they usually have to be in horizontal. Okay, next photo. We have a crab in the water. It looks like it's hiding inside of a leaf and just chilling there. It's a very small image, so it's a little bit hard to judge on it. But again, the same thing that I keep talking about is making the subject the brightest. And in this picture, it just looks like it just blends in with the rest of the image. If you could just slightly just enhance it, just mask it out and enhance the crab. If it's a crab, I think it's a crab, yeah. It is a crab. If you could just slightly enhance it, that would be more beautiful and make the image more brighter and make it pop a little bit more. But in terms of photography, I think it's good. Maybe more zoomed out would allow us to understand the whole story a bit more. Because in this image I cannot tell if this is in a aquarium, if this is in nature, and you can only kind of judge that there's a crab and it's in a leaf and stuff. So sometimes a bit more story can really tell something. Let's move on. Okay, we have a portrait image of a man standing. Looks like somewhere in Asia, and we have a picture of him with some nice bouquet in the background. Not sure if this is taken on a camera or on a phone, but I could really tell you that if you would really bring in the camera closer, let me just zoom in and show you how it will look much better. If you would really bring in the camera and have more focus on him, you would have a bit more of a portrait here. And if you could maybe even walk a couple of steps back so that you don't have the cars in the background, but you have maybe more of the sky and more of the greenery, and just a couple of steps back behind those cars, it would really look better. And practice posing. Posing is very good. You can look on Pinterest at other people's ways on how they pose. Stand in the mirror, do some poses and things, and maybe look serious, maybe look funny, maybe look smile. Posing is something you need to master. It takes some time, but just copying other people is a great way to start. Pinterest and things like that. Let's move on. Okay, black and white image here. Seems like it's Europe, not too sure, maybe it's not. We have some cyclists here, we have a church, we have some cables. I could judge maybe by the cables that maybe it's Asia, because in Asia they have a lot of good cable management all over the place. It's all a bit random and stuff, but back to the photo. We have some cyclists here that are cycling in a car. I'm not too sure what we're trying to paint here with the story. Maybe some sort of a movement, but it really looks a little bit. But it really looks a little bit just like a photograph of walking on the side of the street and taking the image, and that's also great. Candid photos and street photography is art on its own way, and some people prefer that over posed images or placed items in places to enhance it with multiple lights and things. And I personally prefer candid photos over studio photography, because I think in studio photography, it's just not my preference. It's not my preference. Let's move on. Okay, this is a very, very beautiful and interesting photo. I think this photo tells some stories, and I think the flat lay shot, which is called the shot when you take the pictures from the when you take the picture from the top, it's called a flat lay photo. And we have a map here with a vintage car, small vintage car model, with a camera, vintage camera, and a binocular, whatever you call it, and the Rules of Life book. I think this is a great starter kit for somebody that is looking to travel, or somebody that's really in touch and in love with the raw nature of traveling and capturing images and looking out for things and reading books. And I think it's a very good photo. I like how it's edited as well. It's almost like a little bit vintagey, smooth. It's not very vibrant and saturated. It's more a little bit slightly got this dull cover over it, and how you have the contrast of the map being bright and then the camera being dark, and the binoculars being dark. I think it's a very nice contrast. And then you've got the red book and the red car of the saturation and a little bit of details, and everything together just really looks like an album cover. Looks like a song album cover that you could use for something that is a very kind of guitar-y music. Let's move on. Birthday wish, birthday image, happy birthday. And we have an image of a guy sitting, which looks like maybe on a viewpoint somewhere next to a city. You can see a river there in the background, and this is a black and white photo, but I like how smooth this photo is. I like how smooth the editing on it is. That the sky is just, this is what you can get on cloudy days. When you got the sunshine outside and the sun is shining very bright, you get these sharp shadows. But when it's cloudy, you get the beautiful smooth sky, and you get these beautiful shadows all over your face and everywhere else in nature you can see. That's what I like about outdoor photography. I really like when it's cloudy. And with this image, you can see that he's really created this soft look with a smooth hat and a smooth jumper. Everything looks very soft and almost dreamy. And I think it's very nice how he's got this picture and this lot of space at the top where he can put some text in there. But personally, as a photographer, I would think I would have more of him in the image, maybe have a little bit closer, and then you could multi-use this image for, say, your profile picture, say for your Instagram image or something like that. Okay, bit of a technical issue. The camera died, but we're moving on. Next photo, we have a photograph of, I cannot quite tell what this is. Looks like a building. But in my opinion, I think that if you would maybe take a step back and you would allow for us to see the whole image, to maybe allow us to understand what's happening there, because we can see that the people are there, but they're not really there. They're kind of cut off a little bit, and I think the vignetting around it, I'm not sure if that's due to the lens or due to the editing, but I think vignetting is very 2000s, kind of 1995 style, and people are slowly starting to shift away from that. But in my opinion, if you would maybe take the camera back a little bit, see a little bit more of the building, which looks like has some eyes on there. If you would take the camera a little bit back, put the camera on a tripod, and then create a long exposure where you take the shutter speed down and allow it to have this kind of blurry effect. You would have the camera on a tripod and take a long exposure of maybe 10 seconds, and you could see that the building is still sharp because the building is still and the camera is still, but when people are walking by, it creates this kind of wave kind of emotion and mood, and maybe tell a bit more stories that way. Let's move on to the next one. So here we have a picture of a ring. And a lady or a man, not too sure, holding this ring, and it looks like the light is coming from above, which really creates this dramatic feeling. And you can see that there's this contrast between, you can see the dynamic between the hand being in front and the person being in the background, and the face is just slightly lit, and it's very dark and moody, and I think it really tells a beautiful image. But at the same time, I think it being a ring there, a ring would maybe have to be a bit more shiny, bright, showing the color. I think if there would be some blood on this hand, it would really make it dark and would tell a bit more stories, and make it more moody and stuff. But very good photo. Moving on to the next one, we have a pasta dish, which looks like a photo that's been taken on the table. There's some waviness to these lines. Maybe it's not a table, maybe it's a tablecloth. But I like how the food is placed. The lemon on there is a little bit creative, and it's not super simple. But in my opinion, if you would maybe take away the bread and have the pasta as it is, and really bring in the camera closer so you can see the texture, the detail of the juiciness, and allow people to taste, to become hungry when they look at these images. I think that's a very strong thing about food photography. You want people to become hungry, and that's the most selling points when these restaurants post their pictures online or showcase them everywhere. It's to invite people into being able to feel hungry and like they just want to eat this plate, this beautiful pretty plate. Moving on to the next photo, we have a burger. I think, in my opinion, it's a good photo. It's a good starting point, but I think there's something more else you can add to it. The image is clean. The burger is almost centered. But there's just a burger and just a plate and just a plain background, and I think it's a little bit too far. Maybe if you bring in the camera closer, so the burger would be the main subject and filling in the whole frame, and you would maybe have some chips or fries around it, just so you can barely see them, and maybe some forks and a drink in the background. It would tell a bit more. Would have more contrasted image, more to it, more things to look at. But right now it just looks like a simple burger just standing in the distance there, which has some maybe studio light on it, or maybe some sort of a light on it. I'm not too sure, because you can see that the background is very dark, but the burger has some light on it. So it's maybe taken, and even in the background you could add some texture with maybe adding some fairy lights or having some restaurant lights wherever this picture is taken. So good photo, clean, crisp, but it needs something to it, and I think you can take that advice. That's all of our photos, and I think that all these images look very good, and thank you to everybody who submitted these photos. It was very fun reviewing and very fun to give some feedback to see how other people create around this world. And I think that out of all of these pictures, it's very hard to pick one, because there are some that really speak to me in the way of energy and emotions, and some that really speak to me in the professionalism. But if I would personally have to choose the best photo that we can find, I think that I would choose, and the winner would be this image right here. Pulled pork. Beautiful image. I really like it, how it really tells this story of being in a cafe, and there's these angles and the separation between the table being there and the background being there, and I think it's very beautiful that this image is planted right there with the sunset, and everything is in focus. Everything that needs to be in focus is in focus. The coffee and the image and the napkin, and you can everything just kind of perfectly sits there. And the coffee has some little water drips, which looks like it's very fresh. The lighting is perfect. It's not too sharp. It's not too dark. It's not too saturated or colorful or too orange or too white. I think it's just perfect. And this would be a very, very good photo for a coffee place to put on their social medias, or their even on the wall. I think this would be a very good print. You would print it out and put it on a wall somewhere in the background in a cafe there. And I think the winner is this photo, in my opinion. And Pulled Pork, thank you so much for submitting this photo. I love all of these pictures, and thanks to everybody who participated in this challenge. So, once again, I appreciate every one of you that submitted these photos. It was very fun to review all of these images. Don't forget to be creative and start creating today. Thank you.